Ancient Rome has fascinated scholars and artists, influenced political ideology, and provided a paradigm for political leaders for centuries. One particular nation entranced by ancient Rome was Victorian England. As a Victorian-style home, the Cupples house serves as an example of the 19th century engaging with the classical age. Within the Cupples house is a replica of the statue of Augustus of Prima Porta. This statue was sculpted by Italian sculptor Benedetto Boschetti around 1870 and arrived at the Cupples house in 1976. The statue depicts Caesar Augustus, first emperor of Rome.
The remarkable thing about this statue is how rich it is in terms of its iconography. And by iconography, I mean the images or the quotations that the statue is making that an ancient viewer would know, which might be lost to us today.
An interesting detail of the statue is something that most viewers would actually overlook.
He's not wearing any shoes. And in antiquity, this is a very clear sign that the person being represented is represented as a god or a divinity.
In Rome, it was customary that emperors were deified on their death, thus placing the sculpting of the original statue sometime after the passing of Augustus in 14 CE. Augustus is standing in the style of imperator, which displays his power as a military ruler. Also, Augustus is depicted in the middle of a speech, frozen, as if gazing at his listeners. By doing this, the sculptor amalgamated Augustus's image of military general with that of an orator. His hair is cut in the typical Caesar style, which is indicative of his place amongst the Julio-Claudian dynasty that made up the first Roman emperors.
Some of the other pieces that I think are really important about the statue itself come from the military breastplate that he's wearing, that Augustus is wearing. The moment being memorialized on the breastplate is something that's very well known from Roman history. It's the story in which the military standards, or the sign of the Roman military, was being handed back to the Roman emperor through a really diplomatic coup, having been lost half a century before. So during a major battle in the 50s BCE, the Roman military had lost their standards fighting in the Eastern Mediterranean. And then Augustus, about 20 BCE, had arranged for them to be returned.
Augustus was one of the most celebrated emperors in Roman times, having brought the empire out of a time of turmoil following the assassination of Julius Caesar. Known for his military prowess and political savvy, Augustus transformed the Roman government, putting in place an imperial system that would last for centuries. Thus, the statue perfectly shows a union of Augustus's role as politician and general. The replica in the Cupples house is in excellent condition, being made of metal, presumably bronze, and having no perceivable defects. Unlike the original, which stood over 2 meters tall, this replica is around 1 meter tall. From its perch on a table, the statue gazes imperiously across the second-floor hallway of the Cupples house. The statue can explain much about the 19th century. Similar to centuries before it, the 19th century held a deep fascination with ancient Rome. Examples portraying this phenomena come from the literary work of the time. For instance, in his 1873 poem Locusta, English writer Swinburne compared the Catholic Church to Agrippina, who many believed poisoned the Roman Emperor Claudius so that her son Nero could become emperor. Many writers and thinkers compared Britain to Rome, wondering how Rome fell and if Britain could learn lessons from Roman governance. Scholars of the time considered Latin and ancient Greek to be extremely important. For instance, in the novel Hard Times, writer Charles Dickens characterizes the educator, Mr. M'Choakumchild, as a man who knew French, German, Latin, and Greek. From the wealthy to the studious, the people of Victorian England uplifted Rome, which presented them a paradigm from which the British people could glorify and advance their empire. The statue of Augustus of Prima Porta uncovers much about 19th century life in St. Louis. Lying midway between Chicago and New Orleans along the Mississippi River, St. Louis was poised to become a major city. The people of St. Louis at the time were determined to show the world that their city had cultural distinction and imitated Victorian Britain by looking back to the classical age. Looking to the classics was customary to those who wanted to elevate their cultural status. This statue represents the St. Louis upper class, who tried to distinguish themselves by decorating their homes with classical elements. As with many places in Europe and in the United States, looking back to the classics amplified one's cultural status.